Welcome into episode 16 of JD Empire Sports Talk. Of course, JD here with you guys once again with our Jets specialist as well, Ryan Downey. Happy you're here once again. How you doing, bud? You doing good? He's not man of many words when it's off the camera, but he'll give us some good insight. Last time we talked, the Jets only had a head coach and a GM. Of course, Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji. I know I had to make sure I got that name right from last time, but they only had those two last time we recorded an episode talking Jets, of course. And now they're starting to fill out their coaching staff. So we'll get through the time period, who these guys are, what they've done before the Jets, if they have any experience. Um, a lot to talk about. Before we probably won't talk Jets for a decent amount of time, depending on if we get any. Like say next week we have Rogers news, then obviously we'll do that. But up until the combine, probably which is what about 3 weeks away.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. So we'll probably lessen the load on the Jets talk, just so we're not repeating ourselves for 25 to 30 minutes every week. But I know Ryan will be back later in the week for our Super Bowl preview with the Chiefs and Eagles. He's excited about that one. We'll get his little bit of a preview of the preview today at the end of this episode. See what's on his mind at the beginning of the week, and then what he'll be talking about later in the week, as we'll be doing that one going out. Like I said, later in the week, so people can see our predictions, and we're not going to just predict the score. We're going to sit down and go through certain matchups. I know there's former Jets out there on, of course, the Eagles, Mekhi Becton, who will be very, very important to this game. So we'll talk more about that game later in the week, of course. But for now, I guess I don't know. I have this little note on there about the Pro Bowl happening this weekend, which is it was very boring. I know you can agree with me on
Mhm.
that, but Quinnen Williams was a late entry as a replacement, I think for Chris Jones, right? I think he swapped in for Chris Jones, so he went down to Orlando, Florida. You watched it more than I did, but what did he win again?
He won the spike into that little padding.
Yeah,
He had the highest number. I think it was like 980.
so it was like a hammer or something, right? You had to hit or no? Was that something?
No, he threw the football into the
Oh, yeah, yeah. I thought you were talking about that. It was like a hammer spike, but no, no.
no.
Yeah, so he threw the football as hard as he could, and he somehow got the highest score of 980. You were saying?
Mhm.
Wow. I mean, yeah, maybe he can catch a goal line touchdown for the Jets this year. But, beg the offensive coaches to give him a shot on the goal line, perhaps, right? But I now had that little note on the bottom. The Pro Bowl was definitely a joke. That was Quinnen Williams' highlight because he couldn't play in the flag game. Of course, those guys can't play flag football because what they look like. No diss at them, but just of course everyone wants to see the receivers and the running backs and all that good stuff. But with that being said, all right. So Aaron Glenn hired as head coach. Almost what? Almost he had his presser last week, so we're approaching 2 weeks as him as the head coach. Darren Muji hired a few days later, but we're getting to that same point. They're hitting their 2 week mark almost as coach and GM. But after that, Glenn said he was going to get the work pretty quickly. And later of last week, so towards the weekend, he went in there. Hey, you're right there.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure uh, he's choking over there, but he's all good. Um, but they went out, got a staff going. Tanner, what is it? Ingstrin from the Lions. But OC, Steve Wilkes, DC, Chris Banjo, special teams coordinator. They brought in some other assistant coaches, but I want to go through each guy of those first, like the main three, because of course, if you're a coordinator, and Glenn said they're all going to be calling their own plays, so special teams does its own thing, but offense and defense will be calling their own plays. So I think it's uh, important to know. And I know our Jets. I always call him our Jets specialist, but he did his research over the weekend. I give him props for that. Back there, taking time out of his day, writing some notes down to give us some good insight. But Tanner Engstrand or Egstrand, I don't know proper way. I'm still trying to learn. He's from the Detroit line. That's all pretty much I know. I didn't really do the work you did on it. So take it away. And after you give your little spiel on each guy, I guess we can break them down a little bit. Some concerns, some positives, what we have on each guy. But yeah, take it away.
So go with the offense first. I
Mhm.
have Tanner Aitchen. He's from the Lions, like you
Yeah,
said. Hopefully, he can learn something from Ben Johnson, who is the hot candidate
yeah.
this coaching cycle. But before that, he's been around in football coaching for 20 years.
Oh,
He
okay.
started in
I did
San
not know that.
he started in San Diego State. He's worked up every single spot, whether it's quarterbacks
San Diego
coach,
State College, right? Of
yeah,
course. Yeah.
college, the assistant offensive play caller, running backs coach, tight ends coach. He's done all of it, so
Alright.
hopefully he can put it all together and maybe he can show that we can have a good offense.
Alright, I mean, yeah, first time play caller, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of, twist he can put on it. Because of course, if he's learning from Ben Johnson, that should be a good guy to learn from based off of course, as offensive coordinator because he was great with Detroit. Um, Work with Jared Goff, did wonders with him. So, we'll see what Ingstrom can do with whatever quarterback he works with this year and beyond. Because of course, Rodgers may be here this year, next year, not maybe not at all. We don't know any of that yet. It could be a different quarterback, someone in the room. It could be someone they draft, sign, whatever it may be. So we'll see how we can work with that. But I did not know that he had that much experience as a coach. So that's good to see, and worked in different positions too. So he's versatile, which is very good. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I keep laughing, but maybe he could be a good guy for them. I know it's like we're laughing because it's like, oh, they hired first last time they got a defensive minded head coach, they hired a first time play caller, and we know how that worked out. And this they're doing the same thing, so they're kind of going deja vu on Jeff fans. But um, hopefully he works out. I like that though. I like the 20 years of experience. This guy, DC, like I said, Steve Wilkes, on to our next assistant coach. I know more about him than really any of the other coaches they brought in. I what I do know is he's had head coach experience with the Arizona Cardinals. It was a short time, right? Only a year,
Yeah.
and they kind of booted him out of there for whatever reason. And he was interim with the Panthers as well. I'll let you go on with that though. I know he has some other stops along the way.
His recent like head coaching, he wasn't that good, but he's not getting that role here. And his recent success as defensive coordinator
Yeah,
was with the 49ers.
yeah,
I said
he's
this
been good.
last week. He
Yeah.
made the Super Bowl. They were top 3 defense that
Hmm.
year. But I think that he can connect with some of the players. Like he's like that motivator, like Glenn. So he's like the same type of guy. But I think and I hope this is the right hire for the defense.
Okay, yeah. So you seem more confident in him, I think, than the offensive side, which could definitely be right. I want to ask one more question. So I know he was with the Panthers as an interim head coach. Was it not last year? The year before that? Was
Yeah,
it right?
22 or
Oh, yeah,
23.
yeah. So it was last year,
22.
technically last year, like, if you were to yeah. So when Frank Reich got let go, he took over for them. They played good. I remember the Panthers went on a little. I mean, they didn't do great, but they played good. Good ball, as Pat McAfee would say, good ball. Wilkes does have that experience. He's been a defensive coach for a long time. He played as well. I don't know if people know that. So I like. There's a theme I wanted to ask you, but I guess we could do it now. Uh, or after. Yeah, we could do it now. So Aaron Glenn, so far, of course, we know he played. We talked about that all last week of being a Jet as a player, scout, and now coach. I want to ask, do you think that is very beneficial to have coaches that have played the game instead of maybe having guys that are very smart? I'm not going to take away from some of the coaches in the NFL that are very smart. Mike McDaniel comes to mind. Um, Sean McVay, guys that didn't really play, but they're very, very smart. I'm not taking away from them, but I think it's always a different perspective, I guess you can call it, as to guys that played the game, especially when you break it down into positional coaches as well. I think it's very important to have that. Do you
Yeah,
agree with that?
I think so because like like they know what it takes to
The
get at
day
it.
in and day out,
They
right?
know what it takes to go out there and win
Mhm.
and put up good stats and get into the playoffs. Aaron Glenn, when he was here, he knew what it takes to make the playoffs,
Yeah.
and that's something these players don't understand yet.
Yeah, I think it's a respect level too. Like I know us personally, like if we play for someone, um, our dad, he played in
Hmm.
college, so we have that respect of, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. I mean, and that's on a professional level now. If this guy played uh at whatever position on a highest level in the game at a pro level like that, you got to have the respect for the guy. Which I mean, like someone like Nathaniel Hackett, I don't want to clown on him because he's not going to be here anymore. He didn't play, so it's hard to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna listen to this guy calling plays for me." As someone like Garrett Wilson, be like, "I'm gonna listen to this guy calling plays for me when he never played before." It's very tough, but I think that's a respect level that it will come about. But I think it's good that he's bringing in coaches that have played before and some experience, of course, coaching. But next guy, Chris Banjo, who's played more recently than any of the coaches that the Jets will have on the staff, special teams coordinator. I know he hasn't had much coaching experience at all. right?
He
How
was
many?
with the Broncos last year under Sean Payton.
Yeah, but that was only
That
right
was the
2
only
years.
year.
Yeah, that's all you got on him.
Hmm.
Do you have anything
Yeah.
else?
No,
I know he played, right?
I just had that he was a former player, which I
Yeah,
think is good. Have another
yeah, like
former
you said.
player,
Mhm.
and then the guy under Sean Payton. Why would you not want a guy under
No,
one of the best coaches in the
yeah, I
league?
mean, Sean Payton had. I didn't want to cut you off there, but Sean Payton had very good special teams units with New Orleans and now with Denver. Denver this year, they were a great special teams team, and that was part of the reason why they won 10 games. They had every ounce of. They took everything out of that team, and special teams is a big part of that. And Chris Banjo getting his first opportunity, becoming the main guy on special teams. I know he played for the Cardinals. That's kind of where I remembered him from. He was a special teams ace, as you would say. So I think he'll have some weak pieces to work with here with the Jets as well. I know Irv Charles got hurt, but he was outstanding on special teams for the Jets. He was one of the lone stars, but I think he has something to work with there. A few other guys. Hopefully, Morstead stays because he can punt well for the Jets. He can put his own twist on this. And I know he learned from Mike Westhoff too, who was a legendary special teams coach. So if he learned anything from him, he's going to be okay. I'm not concerned about the special teams. That's a really, really good hire. Um, Anybody you want to talk about next? I know we have a few. I know you had how many more names you got on there?
I have two.
Two more.
Sean Jefferson, the receivers
All
coach.
right.
He was brought back from the
Mhm.
Sala era. He was also brought back before that with Adam
Gase.
Gase.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be his third different coaching staff that he's been with in New York.
Yep.
I think this is gonna be good because we have Garrett Wilson, who's the main piece of this roster,
Mhm.
and he has a good relationship with him. He kept him in most of the games, didn't let the attitude fall out when the offense wasn't doing their job.
Yeah, I wrote that note there because I know we of course we go over our notes before the episode so we don't sound like fools for everybody. But that was the only coach I wrote there. The only coach uh across the entire coaching staff of Robert Sala from last year that was retained, and I think it has more so to do with, like you said, his relationship with Garrett Wilson. Don't get me wrong; he's definitely a good wide receiver coach. He's developed guys. He's been a part of developing different guys. Where was he? He was with Arizona,
Mhm.
so he was trying to develop guys over there. So he has a good. He was also a player as well. So he has. I mean, Van Jefferson, his own son, made the NFL. So he definitely coached him up. So he's coached up a lot of different guys. But I want to ask you about that. So I know how you said he kept Garrett Wilson in certain games and stuff like that. I don't know if this has to. I don't know if this has to do with the other thing, but do you feel that I'm trying to connect dots and speculate? Do you think that would have to do with anything with Rodgers coming back, keeping his position coach here that kept him in check when he was definitely not happy this year? And I've heard rumors, and I know you've heard rumors that Garrett Wilson will request a trade, and I don't think the Jets will even entertain it. I think Glenn is going to have a talk with him, and if he doesn't have a talk with him, Muji will sit him down and be like, "We're not trading you, we're extending you, and we want you to be here for when we turn this around." So, do you think it has anything to do with maybe the quarterback position, or do you think this is just more so because they were like super tight and they didn't want to mess with that? I
I
know one player doesn't determine the whole team, but in this case, it's a big player.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson is the player that the Jets need, and if we move on from him, that's another position that
Starting over.
starting over. Because who else are you gonna play? Malachi Corley, Jason Brownlee, Xavier Gibson. Those, you can't roll out receivers like that when you're trying to make the playoffs. But I think this could be with the quarterback position because that we saw at the end of the year, Devontae was getting the bulk of the receptions,
Yeah.
and maybe if Devontae's back, Sean Jefferson's back now, so he'll like try and get in there and tell him that Garrett's gonna be the number one, you got to be the number two, and you got to teach him how to play the game that at a high level like he did.
No, yeah, that makes sense. Even just 1A and 1B, like they don't have to have specific roles. I mean, they're both two great players. Garrett Wilson's really going into year four, so he's super young. I think he's still scratching the surface. But Devontae, of course, is a Hall of Fame kind of receiver, and he's a question mark as well. So I think that if you're gonna pick one or the other, or you're gonna whatever you want to do with that, you got to take your homegrown talent and keeping him happy any way you can, and that if that means keeping a position coach that he loves around, you got to do it. Because I know one game that came to mind, he freaked out in the Jacksonville game. He kept him locked in. They wound up winning that game. Maybe if he's not there or he's not someone that he trusts like that, that doesn't happen. So I definitely see where you're coming from. And the next guy here, I know that the Jets just brought in a few days ago, Scott Turner. That Turner comes to mind. Yes, Norv Turner's son. I know you have some other notes on him, but before that, I just wanted to talk about he's not getting a significant role, but he's been around the game for a long time, learned from a really, really good mind. North Turner was a great offensive mind for numerous years. Who would be the passing game coordinator, whatever that means. I don't know. Sometimes I feel in the NFL they just give out random roles, like quality control coach and all that stuff. But anything on Scott? Any extra stuff besides what I just threw out there?
I have that he started in college and worked his way up.
Okay.
I like that guys
Yes.
not just handed the opportunity.
Mhm.
And then I have that he took over at the end of last season for the Raiders offensive coordinator. And as much as their offense wasn't good, I think Aiden O'Connell did look a lot better in the second half
Yeah.
when he came in instead of what Gardner Minshew was doing.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
there definitely wasn't that much of an improvement. But I think that I kind of think he looked better than Minshew in the first half.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much you had to work with either there. So Oakland or Vegas was not great. So I think that's good to see that this guy worked his way up, and that was one thing I didn't write in the notes, but I really wanted to get your opinion on that. I think, like, I don't know. I feel like, of course, head coach Aaron Glenn. I mean, I'm not saying I'm sold on him because I'm still not sold on him, like as a coach, because he's never been a head coach before. You gotta wait. But I like how he's bringing in coaches that have that same mentality as him. You can tell these guys that he's bringing in at every position, because I know there's other guys that we didn't really. They're not worth, I don't know, talking about every single position coach. I don't think that's boring at this point. But I think that they're all guys that either know him personally, played the game, work their way up, like you just said. If you're working your way up from college for whatever college you're at, I know it's very hard. Like, it's very hard to keep doing something and grinding at it when maybe you're not getting to where you want to. So that's very good to see that all these coaches that the Jets have brought in have been guys that worked their tails off to get to this point. I think that's very, very very, very good, and it's a respect thing. I keep saying that. Like, oh, you worked your way up. You've been coaching for 20 years, and you did it this way. Like Scott Turner, North Turner's son, he should have. In all honesty, he could have been coaching with his dad right out of when he started wanting to coach. But no, he taught him the right way. He was like, okay, you want to coach, you got to learn through everyone else does. Go to college first, learn experience how to coach college kids, which is a different thing than the pros. We know that. I think that's very, very good, and happy to see any other guys he brings in, and we'll see what happens going forward. But any other thoughts you wanted to give on any of these coaches, and maybe someone you're hoping they bring in that's a senior advisor or whatever you want? Any names that are coming out there to you? Nothing?
I like the
Anything?
idea of Doug Peterson, maybe. I don't know if they're connected to him, if he's available in like certain role
Mhm.
in advising, but I would like to see him get like at least a chance to bring him in.
Yeah, I mean, Dougie P is a Super Bowl champion, so it's something that if the Jets wanted to get Coach Ingstrin or Coach Tanner right now, I think we're going to call him until we learn his name the right way. I think you want to surround him with the most experience possible. I know they brought in a QB coach. I think it was today or the other one of the other days. I forget. He was with Seattle. He's an older guy, has experience. So, I mean, if they can keep bringing in the experienced guys, that would be very, very good for this team because I think right now the coaching staff definitely looks a lot better than last year. I know I've been watching different shows and redoing my own research. I know you're doing your own research on these guys, trying to figure out. I mean, nothing we can do if they stink or not, but we're trying to make sure that we know what these guys bring. And as fans, we want to know. Like, we want to know if this guy's a scrub or he knows how to coach. And only time will tell. But I think this is huge coming up for just because the Super Bowl's on Sunday does not mean the NFL stops because it doesn't. We know that coming up soon, the combine that's huge for the Jets because there's certain positions right now that listen. I think they have a lot of starters on this team that they don't have to worry about that. I know we can. You're right there.
My bad.
Yeah. So he's having a coughing attack over there. Uh, but I feel that we can go through it if you want. But there's numerous guys they have on offense. I think they have what 7, 8 starters right now. Offensive line 4 to 5. I think you can argue that Moses should be back. It would be the offensive line would be the same. Brees Hall, hold that cough, please. Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson. That's 7 right there. So and defense the same thing. They have a good amount of starters, but this draft, especially the combine, is huge. I mean, huge for the depth pieces because the first round they may be drafting a guy that's not going to start at a particular position, but could be down the road or whatever depth could be. It doesn't matter what it is. So it's very important for this team. They have a lot of question marks right now. They got to figure out what they want to do at quarterback. I expect that to be finished within the next week or two. I think for the combine, so they really can focus on what they want. And if you have an Aaron Rodgers on this team, I think you're gonna not shift your gears totally, but shift them a little bit differently than you would if you had a rookie quarterback on this team because you would only have Rodgers for a year or two. I know they're not going to cater to him like they did anymore, but I think combine, of course, free agency. You never know if they make any trades. I think they're gonna. I think this front office and with Glenn and everything, they're gonna try to make one move. I think that can solidify or put a bold thing around whoever this guy's name is that they bring in here. I think that that's something that usually new regimes like to do. They like to either get rid of a piece that maybe has been good for this team that they think they could do better with another guy, or bring in someone to help the team out. I think they'll have a splash move coming up. But with that being said, episode 16 will be done now. I just want to ask everybody to please go out there, follow the TikTok page, get this guy famous. Right here, I'm pointing the wrong way. Get him famous on TikTok, Instagram. Instagram's doing really well with episode wise videos, predictions. We want to get those numbers up, and it's the opposite for TikTok. So hopefully everybody can just go in there, give support us. Episode 16, of course, I can't believe that's done already. So we've done a number. Well, we're probably at like 5 or 6 episodes together now. That's very, very good. He'll be back later in the week for a bonus. Gets a little overtime this week. Next week we'll see what happens. We may do a. We're probably gonna wait for Knicks Rangers. Well, I'll do it myself, but Knicks Rangers and St. John's episode until next week. St. John's got two big games this week, so I think it's best if we wait for both of those to be over with. Knicks and Rangers are heading into the All Star break within the next 10 days or so. So probably when we get to the All Star break for both of those teams, and St. John's clears this week, um, we'll talk more about all those teams because, of course, the Jets talk will die down a little bit, not too much because I'm sure they'll be in the headlines all the time because, of course, they are. But episode 16 is over for Ryan Downey, RD, our Jets specialist, and I'm JD signing off. Have a great night, everybody.